Hello, welcome. We're delighted you're here with us today. We have here with us today Nancy Ancowitz, and she will be speaking to us about the top 5 mistakes you and I, all of us, the top 5 mistakes we're likely making in video meetings. So let me give you a short introduction to Nancy, and then we'll get right into it. I've known Nancy Ancowitz for a long, long time. She's an executive coach, a career coach. She's a wonderful person. And let me tell you professionally about her. She is the author of Self-Promotion for Introverts, The Quiet Guide to Getting Ahead. Great book. Highly, highly recommend it. She's also a long-time NYU, New York University instructor. In fact, we first met because of a friend, but then we immediately learned that we both have aspects of our lives that tie into academia, and she's a long, long time instructor at NYU. Nancy's next highly interactive class is open to the public, and it's a 2-part mini-series that's going to be these Tuesday, September 29th and October 5th. It is on this topic. I'll read the topic to you specifically. It's Present Your Best Self from Virtual Meetings to Webinars. And we'll be sharing links on that as well in today's session. Hello, Nancy. Great to have you here.
Hello, Senya. Thank you for the most gracious introduction. Thank you.
Nancy, before we get into these 5 mistakes, and I'm sort of jumping at the bit to get to it, why is it that we make these mistakes? Why is it that people are making these mistakes when they're on video meetings?
How many people were born to be on Zoom? Unless you were born to be a TV announcer, which most of us aren't, and I don't pretend to be one of those either. We're just regular human beings who are trying to get about our days and our jobs. So there's a learning curve.
Oh, wonderful. Let's launch right in. So let's even start with literally the first. What is the first mistake we are likely making when we're on video meetings?
Losing your head.
Losing our head. I like that, right? Just kind of going into a corner.
Losing your head. Looking down at the camera, looking up at the camera, nostril shots, you get it. Losing your head. And part of losing your head is all those weird angles, but it's also the eye contact. And you say, eye contact? What does eye contact mean if you're looking into a camera? And it's pretend eye contact, really. So we have a little tip for that. You ready for a tip?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it. Yes.
I sent you a picture. You have the picture of the tip?
Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, this is hilarious. Okay, ready? So
the hint is
screen share.
Where to look?
Okay. Narrate us through this. So talk us through what this is. Okay.
I have never worn false eyelashes, but I thought they would look good on my video cam. So if I put a false eyelash on my video cam, that will get me to remember that that's the eye. That's where I'm looking. And if I'm looking at my video cam, it's like I'm looking at you.
So tell me, did you really do this? Do you really have the false eyelashes above your video cam? And even just for an example, for everybody who's watching right now, you look like you're looking directly at me. Are you looking at the eyelashes? Like right now I'm doing that. Or are you looking at me just below it? Which one do you tend to do more?
I look at the eyeball, which is under the eyelashes. And then I also glance over at you. I try not to look too much at myself. And I know it's the natural inclination is to look at yourself and do it beforehand. Don't do it during too much because you know what you look like. You look in the mirror. It's so unnatural to watch yourself speak. It will make you, for many people, more self-conscious. Also, think of there's an intimidation factor looking at somebody as on a giant screen and having their head, especially if you're intimidated by them, you're on a job interview, let's say, or just your audience. They may be, if you're looking at the full screen, they may have a giant head and it might be, whoa. So think about it. You could just look at the eyeball of the video cam and you can also glance over, but maybe not in giant size because again, it could be intimidating.
Mm-hmm. So when you say in giant size, do you mean don't get too close? Is that what you mean in giant size? What do you mean?
Oh yeah, great, good point. So it's, if you're looking at your audience in the big framed picture, like it depends on your program, but it could be in speaker view. And then the person who's speaking is their whole head takes up your monitor. If you're looking on a regular monitor, it can be very in your face. You don't normally speak to somebody with their face so big in front of you and it's face to face like that. Normally there's several feet between you. So I'm saying maybe look in gallery view where it's smaller, depending on the app you're using, or if you're using your phone, everybody's small. And then also, you also want to look into the video cam to make it look more like eye contact. And there's a little glancing back and forth because you don't want to ignore what's going on with your audience. You want to look at them too.
So here's what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say you might be cutting yourself out of the picture. Don't do that. Don't be a boxer. Don't sort of dash and jab and things like that. Stay in the shot. And you're also saying when you're looking, actually look either at the camera or very close at the person, but don't make them huge on your screen. So that's another thing that I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Don't blow them up so they take up your whole screen. Yeah, so I've never heard that. That's really interesting because I understand what you're saying. It feels, it's a completely different feeling. You're blowing them up to double their actual size when you're doing that. You could be.
Yeah, it's intimidating.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell us mistake number 2. What else are we doing?
So trying to be a human Swiss Army knife and trying to do it all by yourself. So you're the on-air talent. Oops, I hit a button. You're the on-air talent. You're the bouncer if somebody inappropriate comes on. You're the technology person. You're everybody. And that's too much for most of us. So I say recruit somebody to handle the production aspects or the technology aspects so you can just be the on-air talent, the expert, the speaker, whenever it's possible.
I totally know what you're talking about. Friends of mine who are coaches and who facilitate, they often will ask the company that they're doing a presentation for a producer, for someone to do those things, like to help get people into breakout rooms, to make sure, like you said, admitting people, but just really so you're focusing on the content and the reaction of your people. So I love that that's your mistake number 2 and your advice number 2, get that producer. I have seen it work really successfully with colleagues of mine.
Yes. In fact, I have client organizations where I speak that now require all their speakers have a producer, that the speaker cannot also be the tech person.
Interesting.
You have to have separate people for that because as much as we try to multitask, most of us aren't good at it, myself included.
Interesting. Very interesting. For everybody who's just joining us, we're talking about the top 5 mistakes that we are all likely making in video meetings. And we're here with Nancy Ancowitz, and we've just gone through 2 of them. Awesome. So following up on that one, Nancy, at what point do you need a producer? So if I'm doing a one-on-one, there's no producer needed. If I'm running a meeting with 4 people or 6 people, do I need a producer? At what point will I need someone else to run the tech part?
I like that question. It's a thoughtful question. I don't think there's a one size fits all, but let's say you're giving a webinar and there's hundreds of people there, a lot of bells and whistles, a lot of moving parts. Certainly I did that recently and I got a producer because that was a situation where that was really necessary. If you're doing a meeting with 4 or 6 people and your colleagues and you talk all the time, it's probably not going to be feasible. You may not have the staff. So it's knowing when to draw the line in the sand on that. What do you think?
Great. What you thought made me think that maybe it's the difference between a meeting and a webinar. So even on Zoom, that's a difference. The meeting you run and everybody's around. The webinar, you don't see all the people and you really need to monitor both the Q&A and the chat. So I wonder if that's sort of at least one possible distinction for when you need a second person.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Give us number 3. Hit us with number 3. 3. What is mistake number 3?
You're not ready for your close-up.
What does that mean?
Mistake. That means check your lighting, check your backdrop. Should you do a video backdrop or a real backdrop? How about the messy stuff behind you? Could be dirty dishes, could be messy bookshelf. I'll leave it at that. Personal effects that don't belong in a business environment. And now it's all blurred. So get ready for that close up. And I shared a screenshot with you earlier of my favorite tool for that. It's this green screen. Actually, I have a blue screen behind me, but it's also, there's a green screen if you're going to use virtual backgrounds. I think it's the coolest thing. It attaches to your chair. It folds up and you can put it under your bed. It's under the brand name is WebAround. I have no stake in the game at all. I just found it on the internet. But you could also just get any kind of green screen, or again, blue screen, gray screen, whatever color it comes in. And by that you can share a virtual background, any kind of furniture or color or wallpaper that you choose to project there. But using a virtual background at this point still requires a very fast processing speed on your computer. A lot of people I've found don't have that. So if you don't have that, just get a nice background, like you could get a blue screen of that, or just find a nice backdrop, or even wall space if you have empty wall space, or like you have, Senya, you have a nice picture behind you. But it's control those elements. And as to lighting, you want to have lighting in front of you. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people will mix natural light from a window with artificial light from a lamp, and they just don't go. So usually either draw your shades or draw your curtains, make everything dark, and use two artificial lights, one to the left, one to the right, always in front of you, never behind. Or if it looks good, and do your tech check 15 minutes beforehand at least. If it looks good, that you could just open your window shades and that natural light looks good, go for it. That's fine. But I would mix them.
I just want to show mine. I have a very small ring light. It's so small. It's literally on the desk, and it's otherwise I would be complete. Here, I'll turn it off for you. I'm completely dark when it goes off. So I mean, you barely see half of my face. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It makes a big difference having a little extra light. And it shows your features, shows your expressions. Otherwise, you're in darkness. So many people just don't look good, and a simple light can make such a big difference. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It can be regular desk lamps, or if you want to invest in one of those ring lights, they're not that expensive. Yeah.
So this tip you're calling the get ready for your close-up. Is that what you're saying, or be ready for it? Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. We're about to move on to mistake number 4 that people make. And as we do, I'm going to do 2 things. One is I invite you to ask, Nancy, you asked me to do it. It's in another room, but I'll bring it. You asked me to, please write your questions in for Nancy. You can start writing in any questions you have about video meetings, write them right in for us. And at the same time, you will see, I'm going to start posting links. This is to Nancy's course that she's teaching, actually all on this at NYU. So I will start posting a series of 3 links as we're talking about this. You start talking. I'm going to get my mask. I'll be right back. Go for it.
So the 4th mistake is muddy elocution. I am working so hard for you to hear me through my face mask. I have to speak extra clearly through a face mask. And now Senya is going to get her face mask. And not that you would ever be silly enough to wear a face mask on a video call, but we're doing this because Senya has such beautiful elocution. You will see, or now you will hear her elocution through a face mask. Hi, Senya. Oh no, I don't even hear you.
I was also on mute, but
you're on mute.
Extra quadruple hard too. So I think almost what you're saying is practice either through a mask or some other way. Whew, feels so good to get it off. But practice just before that you are enunciating, you're being eloquent, you're actually spreading your mouth as you're speaking, that you're making the words clear. That's what I'm hearing you say.
That is what I'm saying. And if you can speak clearly through a face mask, and every letter of every word is clear to the audience, and when you videotape yourself with a face mask and play it back and every word is clear, then you're doing something right. But practicing with a face mask on, it's novel and it helps.
It's awesome. I think they should also post themselves with a face mask on LinkedIn and just hashtag Nancy Ancowitz and Senya Myman and just show us how good they can be at this. It's a great exercise. I'm so used to doing things like Unique New York or just sort of moving my mouth around, but I love that idea that you get extra effort when you're trying to do it behind a mask, but to sound very, very clear. Thank you. That's really helpful.
We could do Who is that masked woman?
That's right. That's right. Link to Nancy Ancowitz and Sonia Wyman. Awesome. I love it. Who is that excellently enunciating, eloquent masked woman?
Who is that masked woman?
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so that was 4 mistakes. What is mistake number 5 that we are all likely making?
Being a talking head. Being boring.
Say more. What do you mean?
Being boring, droning on, no visuals. It's hard to deal with a void when you're talking into a little black box, especially when you can't see your audience. So it's having interactive elements, whether it's some little quiz, some poll, any kind of interactive visuals, props like we're doing here, keeping it alive. Questions to the audience, making it interactive is so important. Otherwise, you could be a talking head.
Absolutely. So making it interactive. So do you also mean, because I actually have a question about this, do you also mean in a meeting, even if it's a 4-person meeting, sharing slides? Or do you mean that it could be something like as simple as sharing something on a Post-it? What sort of visuals do you mean?
Yes and yes. Whether it's a slide or although you can drone on and slide after slide, what you don't want to do, remember that with online content, all the more reason you want to chunk things down into small bits so that your audience doesn't have to stay glued to their seat for hour after hour. You want to break things up every 15, 20 minutes, give a stretch, give a break, have some chat, use the online chat, use whatever trivia, games, Google Docs, questions in advance, questions during, whatever the elements are, you want to make it interactive because it's hard to be sitting so long staring at those eyelashes.
That's right. Fancy eyelashes. We have a comment from somebody who is watching with us today, and she's actually a coach and she's been on the program. So let me post the comment. This is by Anne Marie, and she's saying she learned the importance of lighting during a presentation she gave that started when it was still daylight, but transitioned to evening before it ended. How interesting. And she had been using the natural light from her window, and all of a sudden she was in the dark. Thank you for sharing that. That's very visual, your experience.
It's a terrific point, and I'm glad she said it. It was in the back recesses of my brain, and she said it, so I'm glad. Thank you for that. Yeah. If you're going to spread to be in different times and the sun sets, then yes, you need to have the lighting set for the darker one. So you want to have the shades down with the artificial light for the whole thing, unless there's a break in which you can change everything.
Nancy, so we've gone through five mistakes that people likely make when they're doing video meetings. What is an example of someone that you know who's actually improved their video game by a lot? Either someone who's gone to one of your courses about having better video meetings, or just someone that you know, but someone who's really upped their game. And what was it? What did they do?
The number one thing they did, and it really covers all of these tips, is they got fully prepared and they got the job. So instead of when we started working together and they were looking all over the place and the backdrop was messy and they weren't tidied up and all that stuff, and then we fixed the elocution and the speech and the whole thing, they were looking into the camera. So it was getting fully prepared, logging in super early, doing their tech check. Actually, even as we just did today, the sound wasn't working, so I had to switch systems and whatnot. I find switching between various apps, whether it's Google Meet to StreamYard to Zoom, different things work differently with your mic and your camera. So it's giving yourself plenty of time not to get stressed out last minute. And you don't want to be doing your tech check during showtime.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the plenty of time. You get to review your notes, the key points you want to make. That makes all the difference in the world. And again, it's with job interviews, with virtual meetings, with virtual presentations, all that stuff.
Yeah. So really just get there early, even prep, and also get there early and just double check everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, look, two people who use video a lot, you and I, and we
Yeah.
needed to have you switch to a different computer. We tried 3 browsers and we needed to switch you to a different computer. And we
Yes.
know this stuff. So it
We-
happens regularly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so funny.
As many times as I present, there's something different every time that goes, oh, where did that come from? Okay, I'm plenty early. I can deal with it.
That's nice advice because what you're basically saying is, hey, if you double check things right before you go, that might be a really good way of setting yourself up for success during that actual video meeting.
Absolutely. And even if you have that producer person, and producer might be a fancy word, it might be just somebody, could be a colleague who just is watching the chat for you because you can't do that while you're presenting.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be producer. It could be friend. Exactly. And by the way, Anne-Marie had just typed back in. She said she had taken care to set up the lighting just right before she started, but forgot that it would change so much over the day. So exactly the situation we're talking about.
Yes.
Nancy, any other things that we should think about in terms of either other big aha mistakes that people make or just things that we really should keep in mind as we're running video meetings?
Yes, an important one, and since a lot of my work is for introverts, although I work with plenty of extroverts, but one is to prepare for challenging questions that could come up. Speaking on the spot is particularly hard for introverts and some extroverts too, who say everything that comes to their mind. So anticipating, let's say the 5 toughest questions that you may get asked during whether it's a job interview or a Q&A during a presentation, it will go a long way. I say it's the 80-20 rule with that. You probably can anticipate 80%. So writing those down, preparing your answers, practicing your answers out loud, and remember in the moment when the question comes and somebody says, what's a brontosaurus's favorite snack food? And you're like, you say, terrific question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Tell me more about your interest in brontosauruses. So commenting on the question, inquiring about the question. And even if you have an audience, you could say, I'd like to think about that for a moment. And my first thoughts are, or before I comment, who would like to give their thoughts? So it's these ways of buying time so you can stay grounded and give your best to your audience.
So is it grass? Is the answer grass?
Definitely. But if I weren't sure, I would say take an improv class to be extra sure, because that's the best way to build that muscle, I think. Especially as an introvert, if you don't have that muscle built of speaking on the spot, which most introverts don't, take an improv class. You could do it online now, and you'll build that muscle about learning the yes and technique. I'll just leave you with that. You're like, yes, I hear they like grass, and you could build on that.
What else? That's wonderful. This is so rich. It's really great. When we post this, we'll also try to post the 5 tips, sort of a list of them, the mistakes and the tips.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It feels very holistic, sort of encompassing everything from audio to how you get your content across to how you look, just all of it. Thank you so much, including the visual of that little eyelash and a green screen. We've been posting all along, just for people to know, about Nancy's course. So we've been posting that in the comments. You can find it there. You can also always reach out to me and to Nancy. Nancy, what is any ending comments? What are any ending comments that you would like to leave the people who have been joining us for tips on running great video meetings?
It's put your best self forward on video. Be your own best avatar. That right now we're all in these little boxes, and it's super important to be your best inside this little box, that you get one opportunity to make a best first impression and to continue that on. And here are some tips to do that. And thank you so much, Senya. I shared some articles too, in case you're interested in reading more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nancy Ancowitz. This has been wonderful. This has been the top 5 mistakes you're likely making in video meetings and what you can do about it. Thank you so much. Delightful having you here.
Delightful.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again. We're here Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Tomorrow is Kelly Beischel, and she will be talking to us about how to use the SCARF model to become a better leader. Thank you, Nancy. See you soon. See you soon, everyone. Be well.